The emphasis returned to one of reality TV's trickiest triangles. The tension is at an all-time high and Jasmine has returned just when fans thought the chaos had finally stopped. It's the second child. All of a sudden, Kirk and Rasheeda are swept back into the tempest from which they were never able to entirely escape. Supporters are stunned. A great deal of emotion was present. The reunion was not coincidental, according to rumors from the scene behind Dash. Jasmine made a subtle return. Before reappearing with a message, a radiance, and what many perceive to be a hidden objective, it was audacious, calculated, and well-timed following the birth of her second child. For months, she remained mute. Was this an attempt to rekindle issues that had already been settled, or was it an attempt to achieve closure? According to insiders, Kirk froze when her fame began to grow once more because some secrets are short-lived. The emotional roller coaster, however, took Rasheeda off guard. Her close friends claim that she was taken aback by Kirk's response as well as Jasmine's reappearance. Tensions were already building behind closed doors, even if the cameras weren't on yet. It seems that a late-night phone call sent the whole home into disarray. Accusations flew and old disputes reappeared, music. As they searched through images, timelines, music, and mysterious social media messages that seem to reveal a story that no one wants to publicly divulge, fans are already picking sides. Jasmine seems to be advocating for more than just splitting up the parental responsibilities. Is Kirk once more torn between the past and the present? How far would Rasheeda to go to safeguard her marriage and her peace of mind? It's not simply drama this time. It has to do with dedication, legacy, and a split family. And depending on what transpires, everything you believe to be true may change if the rumors are accurate. Website. Jasmine changed everything. It wasn't too loud at first. Just one picture, no press run, no interview, and music. The description, which featured Jasmine standing with a light, soft baby carrier on her chest and the words, "Growth suits me well," appeared on blogs in a couple of minutes. Many people were taken aback, and the comments section became a battlefield. Whether music was praising her bravery or condemning her of instigating trouble, everyone saw the same thing. Kirk reassessed his delight of the post in less than 10 minutes. It was too late now. Kirk and Rasheeda were feeling very strong feelings. Kirk noticed the notification on the notification on the notification on the notification on the notification. She didn't scream, according to family sources. She strained herself to hold back her tears. She simply stood there, stared at him. The type that makes a space smaller. Kirk attempted to minimize it, claiming that it was only assistance for the mother of his child. Rasheeda had heard the words before, but it had a different impact this time. Jasmine, 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 Jasmine. She was sneaking around, calling friends, and writing to those who had already pledged allegiance to Rasheeda. No favors. No favors were being sought of her, were being asked of her. However, they had previously publicly openly disclosed recollections that they had never publicly discussed. Jasmine reportedly said, "I'm not here to destroy anything. Everyone laughed when I said, I'm here to stop pretending." But a friend said Kirk was crumbling. He acknowledged that the arrival of the second child had already made him feel more anxious. After all, he did love his child. Instead, it forced him to face a part of himself that he had been avoiding: music. He confided in a close friend that he wondered if he had truly improved or if he had simply become more adept at hiding. When Jasmine personally, Jasmine. However, she sensed proof before Rash had proof. Kirk became preoccupied. He always had his phone with him. Late-night business calls began to resurface. Her emotions were running high when she finally approached him, and the confrontation quickly got out of hand. Rasheeda insisted on being truthful. Kirk stressed the importance of patience. Their desires were not fulfilled, satisfied. At the conclusion of the evening, doors banged and shouts resounded, dividing the family in a way they hadn't seen in years. Fans had already started making assumptions outside the house. screenshots from previous interviews with Jasmine appeared again. Videos from Kirk's involvement. One comment such as "This story was never finished," and Rasheeda, despite accusations from some that she was using the kid as leverage, Jasmine remained silent. Many individuals who knew her well said that silence was part of the plan, so she followed Jasmine's direct message to Kirk, which was never leaked or made public, and let the outcry escalate. "We need to talk," it purportedly said. Long after Rasheeda had gone to bed, it was late at night. This time, Kirk was this time. He spent over an hour staring at the computer because he knew that if he answered, a chapter he had pledged to close would be reopened, but if he didn't, something else would be at risk. The next morning, Kirk exited the house early. She was always constantly. She didn't ask, Rasheeda said. Instead, she called a family member and best friend who had long before cautioned her that unresolved problems typically implicated Jasmine. When Kirk entered what he called a meeting, Jasmine was present, composed, ready, and not by herself. A mutual acquaintance who knew both sides and would later claim that the tension in that room was intolerable was seated next to a baby with a sitter. Kirk attempted to cut him off with a single sentence, "music," but Jasmine took her time going over everything, including the missed conversations, the money disputes, the unspoken commitments, becoming a mother, feeling erased, and witnessing Kirk develop an impeccable persona while she suffered the repercussions. Music, rather than shouting or accusing, she concluded by saying, "You are no longer in charge of the story." With her feelings running high, Kirk finally realized that Jasmine was demanding responsibility rather than attention. Unaware that Rasheeda was already getting nuggets of information from someone else, Kirk received a foggy but hazardous text in "music," the middle of the chat. "Maybe you should find out where Kirk actually is." Rasheeda's hands read as Rasheeda's hands shook as Rasheeda's hands shook as Rasheeda's. However, she don't feel because she didn't have any familiar drama, but because she didn't familiar drama, but because she didn't. Back at the meeting, Jasmine revealed the truth, suggesting that she had kept some things hidden out of respect, but respect had its boundaries. The person who warned her that things might shatter. Kirk realized that if Jasmine talked honestly, it would affect Rasheeda, the children, the brand, everything. She didn't need to threaten anyone. Jasmine watched him walk out of the conference, frightened but determined to find a solution. That evening, Kirk arrived home late, but it was already too late. Rasheeda was waiting. She asked a single question with unadulterated passion and no cameras or audience. At that moment, Rasheeda felt a movement in the ground beneath her feet. The family was split apart. "Will you choose honesty or comfort?" Kirk didn't answer fast enough. The past has officially returned to the present. Somewhere in the middle of it all, Jasmine was making plans for her next move, aware that this was only the beginning. There was more quiet than disagreement after that evening. Rasheeda didn't cry or level accusations as she moved through the house on autopilot the following morning. Jasmine. Jasmine appeared composed, but she was heading in the other direction. She started music, to stand out consciously rather than haphazardly. Before long, another picture with a caption sharing "my tale" shows her sitting in a studio chair with headphones around her neck rather than the infant. Fans were taken aback, and blogs flourished. There was a lot of speculation, and friends and family were brought into the drama whether they wanted to or not. Was it a sit-down discussion, a podcast, or an interview? Nobody knew, but everyone could feel the tension building. In order to keep her peace and let Kirk deal with the mess he made, Rasheeda's close circle encouraged her to keep quiet. However, Jasmine was going to ring, and when she was going to be true, and whether she was going to be true. Every communication seemed to serve as a reminder that her marriage was once again public property. Kirk made an effort to limit the harm. There were calls requesting favors. Too thinking of the children and the repercussions, he contacted Jasmine once again and asked her to calm down. "I've been thinking about the consequences for years," Jasmine said coolly in response. It was his time, control. Then came the leak, which was more of a whisper than a complete story. Even if it was purportedly required. The video didn't identify identities, but fans quickly identified the dots and posted harsh comments. Fans immediately recognized the connection, and their remarks were critical. Some vehemently supported Rasheeda, claiming that she was the true victim, while others asserted that Jasmine was deserving of her time due to her maltreatment. Both in private and in public, the family was divided. Lastly, but last, Rasheeda did not in the manner that anybody did not in the way, Rash did not in the way that anybody had expected. Truth waits. That single sentence utterly shook the fanbase. Was it an announcement or a warning? Kirk realized he was losing control of the situation when he saw it. Rasheeda facts, Kirk came back, and this time queries, and this time. Jasmine. Kirk attempted to explain, but the practice of making excuses had become tedious, and his explanations appeared weak. In the meantime, Jasmine's self-assurance only increased. There are a number of things that would be strong, and at last. Everyone was terrified because she was no longer in hiding, but then things took a different, turn. Rasheeda had learned that Jasmine wasn't acting alone through a mutual friend. Someone close to Kirk had been sending her information, moods, weak areas, and schedules for months. This layer of betrayal devastated Rasheeda, who brought it up to Kirk. He disputed everything at first, but then he stopped talking, confirming everything. Then something snapped, and Rasheeda felt clarity instead of rage. She expressed her need for some space to Kirk. Rasheeda had made up her decision, and in spite of Kirk's reluctance, fear, and protestations, she didn't hesitate to choose herself for the first time. Without his influence, there was actual room to think. Rasheeda retreated as Jasmine grabbed the initiative once more. This time, control, public. Her emotions were running high, and fans were examining every word. While some applauded her courage and others charged her with changing history, the harm had already been done. Kirk realized that his attempts to be in the narrative music was in danger. A fresh rumor that Jasmine wasn't done telling the truth and that there was one last thing she had hidden that may alter everyone's view of the past emerged just when everyone thought the storm had passed. One thing became evident as the murmurs grew louder: the two women whose lives he had intertwined, were no longer following his rules, and his family was shattered. This was not merely a spectacular return. It was a reckoning. The rumor was short. According to blogs, Jasmine had arranged a secret meeting with producers within hours in order to correct the album rather than to berate or scold. Fans were simply mentioned, the simple mention of the mere mention of the mere mention of the sole mention of the mere mention of the mere mention of the mere mention of the receipts. Everybody was aware of this reality. This contested whether this was social media. Despite Rasheeda's best attempts, the cacophony followed her everywhere. When others whispered or gazed at her for too long, even mundane errands became stressful. She was worn out, yet seemed composed. She struggled with conflicting feelings in secret, including devotion to her husband, anger at Kirk, fear of what the facts would reveal, and empathy she didn't want to feel for Jasmine. Friends said that Kirk was collapsing and that sleeping had become optional, as if she were bearing an unwelcome burden. His phone kept ringing, and he struggled between damage control and denial. Family members wanted an explanation, and business associates pleaded for faith. He contacted Jasmine once more, but this time he did it out of desperation rather than caution, and inquired about her true desires. "I want peace, but truth is necessary for peace," was Jasmine's direct response. He was unnerved by the statement. Jasmine told a close friend, this was no longer about Kirk, her determination strengthened by years of being dismissed as a footnote. 3. That style of thinking altered everything. It was about her children growing up knowing that their mother didn't keep quiet, and that she valued her voice over consolation. Then, in a surprising turn of events, a former insider who wished to remain anonymous came forward and said that he had seen private conversations years prior that went against what Kirk had said in public. The recommendation was sufficient. Fans, music, examined every word, every clue, and extended family members started to subtly take sides, further dividing the family even though nothing was confirmed. Rasheeda was now forced to face the decision she had shunned. What Jasmine? What if the narrative she had accepted years ago had flaws? The thought, and so that she had began, and so that she had earlier. Broken promises, late nights, and unclear answers. Kirk became terrified as he noticed Rasheeda emotionally retreating. He apologized, made huge gestures, and provided guarantees, but Rasheeda wasn't fazed. She explained to him that she required partial truths, protecting imagery, and honesty without pretense. Meanwhile, Jasmine's date for the sit-down was leaked, and although Kirk tried, Rasheeda could feel her faith being undermined in real time as every answer seemed premeditated. Fans of the music began to count down, feeling as though the season was coming to an end. Jasmine personally contacted Rasheeda a few days prior to the interview. Some of the others had pursued influence. She was forthright, courteous, cautious, and unmediated in her communication. She made no charges or requests. Rather, she just stated that she didn't intend to harm Rasheeda and that she understood if she hated her. After reading the message for a while, Rasheeda replied that she detested lying and that she didn't dislike Jasmine. Both of them were altered by the exchange. When Kirk learned about the exchange, music, he was taken aback and realized for the first time that the story might continue without him. He believed he could keep the women from talking to each other without his permission. When he realized that the sit-down had finally occurred, he became completely uncontrollable. No theatrics. Speaking softly and circumspectly, Jasmine discussed miscommunication and respect, timing, being asked to keep quiet, and putting other people's needs ahead of her own. But she never mentioned Rasheeda's name. As they read between the lines, viewers' emotions were running high. Rasheeda was not angry when she saw the interview by herself, without Kirk or her friends. Kirk issued an ambiguous statement regarding development and accountability after the interviews were broadcast. She experienced both anguish and enlightenment, sorrow for a trust that would never be restored, and sorrow for what might have been. The public's perception of the family was more polarized than ever. Fans didn't believe it, and Jasmine intimated off-camera that another shock was going to unfold. There was only one, the former dust. She promised not to divulge it just yet. Something that might either provide closure or restart everything. The repercussions were more severe than anyone could have imagined. The interview changed relationships in addition to igniting conversation. Individuals who had been selectively, family members who resided far away hinted to things they had long suspected. As the plot expanded beyond Jasmine, Kirk, and Rasheeda to become a comprehensive description of prior behavior, emotions ran high. Deliberate, reclusive. She concentrated on her daily music schedule, her children, and her job. But more painful than music, betrayal was the reality she was dealing with on the inside. The realization that she had been defending a flawed interpretation of reality for years weighed on her more than rage. Kirk leaned into public humility in an attempt to regain his composure. When he talked about progress, treatment, and accountability, it sounded like he was speaking too late. His apparent lack of concern for the emotional seriousness of the situation startled his supporters. Each time he talked, it seemed as though he was speaking to an audience instead of the individuals he was hurting. There is a divergence. Jasmine was conflicted when she saw the response. I felt both relieved and worn out when I was heard. She had no idea that being observed could be so draining. For she was apparently reportedly asked when she was asked in private. The price of silence had already been too high, she claimed. Things took still another turn after that.